Hello, and welcome to the Onstage Colorado podcast as we come up on Thanksgiving in the midst of one very busy theater season all around Colorado. I'm your host, Alex Miller, and in this episode, we're going to talk with Lisa Wagner Erickson with Theater 29. This is a relatively new theater in Denver that's run by a group of local playwrights, and they've got a new show opening December 5th and running through December 21st. It's called Hidden Worlds and Strange Negotiations, and it's an evening of offbeat plays that examine the intriguing connections of love, loyalty, and desire in an uncertain world. Along with Lisa, the shows were written by Jessica Ostgen, Tammy Kennedy, Ellen K. Graham, Dakota C. Hill, Rebecca Gorman O'Neill, and Edith Weiss, and it's directed by Veronica Straight-Lingo. Keep in mind that we're in the thick of the holiday season now, and we've been adding a lot of holiday shows to our calendar. You can easily find them by clicking on the ginormous holiday calendar graphic on the website. You'll be amazed at how many theaters have special holiday performances going on, so check it out on the website at onstagecolorado.com. Also on the website, there are new reviews of 12th Night at the Denver Center, which is fantastic, Mamma Mia at BDT Stage in Boulder, The Full Monty from Open Stage Theater Company in Fort Collins, Meet Me in St. Louis at Littleton Town Hall, and A Broadway Christmas Carol at CU Boulder. We also have reviews planned for Tiny Beautiful Things at the Lake Dillon Theater Company, Last Train to Niebrock at Bob Bleu in Fort Collins, Parfumerie at Benchmark Theater in Lakewood, and the Arvada Center's Christmas Carol, along with Holiday Inn at Johnstown's Candlelight Dinner Playhouse. I'm also heading over to Stanley Marketplace, actually later today, to check out Camp Christmas, which is the Denver Center's off-center interactive Christmas installation. You know, the big stage theater is under renovation this year, so they couldn't do the traditional production of A Christmas Carol, but Camp Christmas looks like a lot of fun, so I'm looking forward to checking it out. You can find all of this great stuff on our website at onstagecolorado.com. Okay, here's my interview with Lisa Wagner Erickson at Theater 29. Okay, we're here with playwright Lisa Wagner Erickson with Theater 29 and also the Lulu Bird Production Company, which is one of several playwright-driven companies working out of the Theater 29 space at 29th Street in Sheridan in Northwest Denver. So thanks for being on the pod, Lisa. It's great to have you.
Thank you.
All right, so I wanted to talk about your upcoming show, which is called Rights of Winter, Hidden Worlds and Strange Negotiations, which has a very mysterious and enticing title. But first, I just wanted to check in and talk a little bit about Theater 29. We spoke, I don't know, it was maybe a year ago or shortly after you started out, and kind of wanted to see how things are going at Theater 29. You guys have had a number of shows up, and maybe start with just for people who maybe aren't familiar with how Theater 29 started and kind of the philosophy behind it.
It's opened in May of 2018, and prior to that, I had met some local playwrights who also produced their own work, who were looking for a space, and I had, in the back of my mind, always thought about someday owning a space where local work could be shown. And then it was an awesome confluence of events where I found a great space at a great price. And I knew the playwrights prior to opening the space, so I knew it could be filled with work by local playwrights. So there's currently, it's me, Ellen K. Graham, Dakota C. Hill, Rhea Amos, and Rebecca Gorman O'Neill and Tammy Kennedy are the resident playwrights. And then sometimes, like with this show, we collaborate with other local writers on productions and events.
Right. Okay. Yeah, it really is a great little space. I really, you guys did a great job finding that theater. And what I find interesting about it is that even though it's right on the corner of Sheridan and 29th, which is a pretty busy street, the building is fairly well insulated. So you don't really hear, much in the way of traffic noise.
Yeah. Luckily I was connected with a great kind of acoustic engineer who helped a lot with the soundproofing, because it used to sound, when I first got it, it sounded like you were on Sheridan. Now it's, most of the time it's faint noise from Sheridan. So.
So with all of those playwrights, it sounds like you've got 5 or 6. How do you guys figure out whose turn it is? Is it just who's got something ready, or how do you figure that out?
Well, I'm the master scheduler. So I kind of look a couple years in advance and see who has things that they want to produce and schedule it out pretty far. So it's so playwrights know when their time is coming up, so they have plenty of time to prepare. And
can you give us an idea of what types of shows have you done so far, in the last year or so?
Dakota Sea Hill has done a couple kind of Edward Albee type plays. Pandemic Collective has had another night of Grand Guignol, which was revised. This last one was revised French horror plays from the 1900s. They've also done one called Laveau with shadow puppetry. The most recent show here was Ellen K. Graham's Never Summer, which was a dystopian Denver fairy tale. I had a wacky comedy last March, an absurd play called The Mrs. Wheatland Pageant. So they're all kind of, in some way or another, so far have been a little offbeat, not your normal kitchen sink drama.
Yeah, for sure. I've gotten out to see, I think I've seen 3 shows there now, and definitely not sure what's coming at me. And I've really enjoyed a lot of it. I can't, not everything resonates perfectly when you're doing that kind of stuff. I'm sorry I missed Mrs. Wheatland because that sounded like a lot of fun. But I've kind of tried to make a point of coming out to Theater 29 because, compared to some of the other theaters that are doing, standard stuff, Theater 29 is definitely going to throw you some curveballs.
So far so good. And we've got some fun stuff planned for 2020.
Great. Well, when I last spoke with you, you talked about maybe expanding in that space to have a little bit more of a lobby. Is that still happening, or is still waiting on that?
Yeah, it's mostly waiting on permits from the city of Denver. And there's a few more things I have to do to get comments from the structural engineer about the building. And then once the permits are done, I can begin. There's not a lot of remodeling, but some remodeling. And then when that's all done, the ramp in the current theater will go, which will allow for more seating or more stage space, depending on what people want to do. And a really cool lobby next door for art shows and experiential theater, maybe.
Yeah, that sounds great. So what kind of reception have you gotten? Have you had some pretty good, audiences coming through to check things out at Theater 29?
Yeah, the word's slowly getting out. We've had a lot of people that live in the neighborhood come by. There's starting to be people that come here just to see what's going on because they're intrigued with one show, so they come to the next. Ellen's show, The Never Summer, ran 9 nights, and every night was sold out, which was awesome. So word is definitely getting out.
So, before we get to talking about the show coming up next, what can you say about next year in 2020? Is there anything that you've announced yet?
We haven't formally announced a season yet, but in early April, there's a play by Tammy Canaday called Riot Confidential. It's set in Denver after a riot in a storefront. That's been a young woman gets thrown through a storefront window, and then that's where the play starts. And it's kind of an intriguing play about memory and family. It has some experimental theater aspects to it, I want to say.
Onstage Colorado is the state's best place to find information about live theater. Our website at onstagecolorado.com has the most comprehensive calendar for live performances, not just in the metro area, but all around Colorado. That means you can find shows from Boulder to Breckenridge, Denver to Durango, and everywhere in between. Also, the Onstage Colorado review crew gets out to see many of the shows going on around the state. So if you'd like to know more about a show before you buy tickets, chances are we've got a review of it online you can read first. To keep on top of it all, subscribe to our weekly newsletter on the site. It comes out every Thursday and has the latest reviews, podcasts, and also a lineup of new shows opening around Colorado. Find it all on onstagecolorado.com. Be sure to subscribe to the Onstage Colorado podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts. You can find it on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and many other podcast platforms. Okay, great. Well, let's talk a little bit about the show starting up December 5th through the 21st. It's called Rights of Winter, and that's WRITES, Hidden Worlds and Strange Negotiations. And it's by you as well as Tammy Canaday, who you just mentioned, Jessica Ostgen, Ellen K. Graham, Dakota C. Hill, Rebecca Gorman O'Neill, and Edith Weiss. So, and directed by Veronica Straight-Lingo. So a lot of people involved with this. So what is it?
It actually all started after my play last March. Before my play, I had local playwrights each night. One each night read a 10-minute excerpt or play before my show started. So it's kind of like a short, I called it a short before the show. And there was a night when Jessica Austin had her work read and Edith was in the audience. And I had worked with them both. Jessica, I met in a writer's workshop, and Edith actually helped me with the staged reading. So I was familiar with their writings, and I just kind of had an epiphany and looked at them and said, we should do something. And that's kind of where it started. And then we met a few times for coffee. And I ended up being the kind of the curator of the plays with their input, and kind of put together plays that the title actually came once all the plays were together. There are actually like Hidden Worlds and Strange Negotiations. And then we strung them we are linking each play together. So it's sometimes the characters from one play will interact with people in the next play, or the sound may travel from one world to the next. So it makes for an odd journey, but interesting, hopefully.
Okay. So truth in advertising there.
Yeah. Thematically, they all have some links. Yeah. They span from like kind of wacky to kind of harrowing, but ultimately hopeful. In an offbeat kind of way. So. Okay.
And so, so many shows running in December are holiday shows, but this doesn't sound like a holiday show.
No.
Does it have a Santa Claus in it?
No, the play that I wrote takes place outside a store called Gnome for the Holidays.
Uh-huh.
And there's a pissed off gnome that likes shiny things, but that's about as Christmassy as it gets.
Okay. Well, you got a little bit of a holiday look there.
Yeah.
Come to Theater 29 for the holidays.
Yeah.
So can you talk about some of the actors that are going to be in the show?
Yeah, there's Bevan Antea, who was actually just in Ellen's last show, Never Summer. She's actually worked with Ellen multiple times. She's been in a web series by Ellen. And then there's Bobby Bennett, who was most recently seen in Boys in the Band, and he actually acted with Dakota C. Hill, the playwright, in Boys in the Band, which is how I met him. Emily Fisher, who's new to Denver, or relatively new from LA. Tara Kelso, who's been in a lot of Denver shows. She was actually in a play of mine and the play crawl that's turned into the Gnome for the Holidays play, the Antoda 2 play crawl. Matthew Schultz, who has acted with the Lita Project and has acted in 2 of Dakota's plays here, and Sadie Graceland Trigg, who has worked in the past with Rebecca Gorman O'Neill and done a lot of local shows with, I think she's done stuff with the Athena Project and Lost and Found Theater. Oh, and Michael McFadden, who is new to Denver, but has had a lot of acting experience, and looking forward to this show.
Okay. And then directed by Veronica Straitlingo, who has the most awesome name.
I know.
And have you worked with her before?
Yeah, she actually was in my play back in March, and I had seen her before. So I knew she had great acting sensibilities, and she is a Renaissance woman. She's a podcaster, improviser, actor, director. And she has a great sensibility for timing and stringing things together. So I knew she'd be fun to work with, and I asked her in the summer, and luckily she happened to be available.
Oh, that's great. You said she does podcasts. What does she do?
She does a show on KGNU called Metro Arts.
Uh-huh. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, she's interviewed people from a lot of local theaters and arts organizations.
All right. Well, is there anything else you want to mention about Hidden Worlds and Strange Negotiations, or like kind of give an idea of what people are what to expect, or just kind of come and see? Kind of
come and see. I mean, it opens with Apollo Flies by Jessica Austin, with 2 characters who keep reenacting the same scenes from tragic romances, and they're getting kind of sick of it. There's one called Signage of the Times, which is kind of a connective piece by Edith Weiss, where a homeless man is trying to connect with, starting out with a sign saying, "We'll philosophize for food." And then my play about 2 hipsters suffering from affluenza who enter into odd negotiations with the gnome. Worse Than Cold Feet by Rebecca Gorman O'Neill, where a bride comes in minutes before her wedding saying she's been abducted by aliens. There's Home by Ellen K. Graham, which is dystopian. Woman comes back after a off-world job gone wrong and tries to get medical benefits Dakota wrote one about a seemingly innocent one-night stand, but one of the men has a pretty startling secret. And then Mating by Edith Weiss, where a woman comes home after a kind of drunken night and meets a cricket in her backyard.
All right. Well, that sounds really intriguing. Yeah. There's not a lot of short theater being done, and it sounds like it'd be really a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Hidden Worlds and Strange Negotiations. So it's going to be at Theater 29, December 5th through 21st. And you can get tickets at Theater 29. That's 29denver.com. Lisa, thanks so much for taking the time to talk with the Onstage Colorado podcast, and I look forward to coming out and seeing the show and seeing what 2020 brings for the theater. It's always a fascinating ride when you go to Theater 29.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, well, if you haven't been to Theater 29, I definitely recommend checking it out. As I said in the interview, you never know what might come at you there. So if you're more of a surprise me kind of theater goer rather than a let's see Barefoot in the Park again kind of theater goer, you should get on over there. I'm still working on who our next interview will be on the pod. So for now, thanks for listening. Have a great Thanksgiving. Be sure to subscribe to the Onstage Colorado podcast, and we'll see you at the theater.